Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40K Imperial Guard tactics video. So today's video we're going to be looking at a sort of advanced infantry tactic that I have been developing, but it's also one that you can use if you are a mechanized commander as well. It's what I like to call the Armageddon Death Zone. Yes, very dramatic name, I know. Essentially, what the tactic relies upon is taking maximum advantage of the Armageddon Steel Legion regiment trait. Now, there are two parts to this regiment trait. The first part is related to vehicles, where if you've got if your vehicle gets hit by an AP -1 weapon, then you treat it as AP nothing. That is very, very good. But the main part we're looking at today is the second bit, which says any infantry using rapid fire weapons can rapid fire at an 18-inch range rather than a 12-inch range. You get an extra 6 inches of rapid fire. Now I've seen a lot of people on the internet not necessarily poo-poo the Armageddon doctrine, but dismiss it out of hand, saying, why wouldn't you just take Cadian? Well, you know, it's very true, Cadian is very good. But the Armageddon Steel Legion doctrine with that 18-inch rapid fire is really, really powerful. Because it means, essentially, that you can cut out one movement phase to get into proper firing range, which is what I consider rapid fire range, especially if you're an infantry commander. What I tend to find with my Imperial Guard is, you know, the first turn or two, especially if it's a shooting army versus a shooting army, I tend to not do all that much damage. I mean, I'll do enough as a shooting army, but what I'll find is that the majority of my damage is done is when I close the distance, when I close the gap, and get into rapid fire range. Now, the important thing about the Steel Legion doctrine is it cuts out a turn of movement. Rather than it being turn 2 or turn 3 when I get into my rapid fire range, I get into it in turn 1 potentially, or turn 2, which is really, really good. Cuts out a whole movement phase, and essentially gives you a whole bunch of extra shots. You know, it's almost like having a turns free firing if you think about it. Because, you know, you would have had 2 to 3 movement phases of only, you know, normal long range 24-inch range shots. But if you cut that down by a turn, you've essentially got a 3 turns worth of shooting on all your rapid fire weapons. It's really powerful. It's really good at getting this shooty meta as well. It's also good in an assault based meta, because a lot of the time the enemy, especially if you're facing something like an Orc Horde, for example, it's very good against assault horde armies, which are pretty popular at the moment. I know there's a lot of turn 1 charges going around, but there's a good old-fashioned Orc Horde coming along, good old-fashioned Tyranid Horde, and even just Space Marines or other armies that will just footstock across the board and get into combat with you, or they'll drive and get, you know, they'll drive turn 1. It basically means that, like I said, you can get into rapid fire range turn 1. Especially if the enemy's going to meet you halfway. And it just, like I said, gives you that 3 turns of the firepower, which is obviously really good, especially if you're facing off against a shooty army, because it means you'll get a turn of rapid fire when they won't, because they'll have to get into 12-inch rapid fire range. So what I'm trying to say is it's good for shooty armies and assault armies, depending on what you're facing. Shooting armies, because you'll be in rapid fire range when they won't. Even Tau. I mean, Tau can take like pulse accelerator drones and stuff and try and get the same level as you, but you can get into rapid fire range and over Tau, which has been a big thing for Guard Command for a long time. Big thing is that the Tau have had that extra 3 inches on us, and now we have the most superior rapid fire. The only people that can keep up with us are Death Guard, and they don't have they get an 80 rapid fire, but they don't really have the numbers to take advantage of it. So it's really good against shooting armies, and obviously it's really good against assault armies. If they're going to get a turn 1 deep strike charge on you, then it's less useful. But if you're facing a traditional assault arm, she's going to drive at you or foot slog across to you, then you can definitely, it's definitely very, very powerful. It's clearly good against foot slogging orcs. It clearly is. It's clearly what it's been made in mind with, because obviously Armageddon fight orcs all the time. Now, it's, as I said, it's very, very powerful. But how do you take maximum advantage of this trait? Well, essentially, you just take rapid fire weapons. Okay, and I mean, like, you don't even bother with heavy weapons. I'm not even exaggerating here. You should just spam either infantry squads or veteran squads, but ideally infantry squads with plasma guns. That's all you really want to do. Hello, cat. Cat's just jumped on my knee. So all you want to do is just basically spam infantry squads with a plasma gun, because that means you have an 18-inch rapid fire with your plasma. That is very, very powerful. Having 2 plasma shots at 18-inch range, that kind of negates your need for heavy weapons, because you can get your plasma guns into range quicker. If you're doing this from an infantry point of view, it means you can, like I said, it's 1 less turns of shooting. If you do this from a mechanized point of view, it means you don't have to drive so close to the enemy and then hop out to rapid fire and then get counter assault. You can just hop out at 18-inch range and double tap with that plasma. Very, very powerful. Very, very useful. Obviously, las guns are going to take advantage of it. The reason why I say infantry squads are better in this situation than veteran squads is, well, veteran squads obviously have to pay more for their plasma, but they also, which obviously means, which isn't great, but also, if you have veterans like shotguns and stuff, they're not really taking advantage of it. The 3 main weapons you want to be using are las guns, plasma guns, and bolters. You want to be giving a bolter to every single one of your sergeants and officers. Anyone who can take a bolter, who has the regiment trait, Armageddon Steel Legion regiment trait, you want to be putting a bolter on them. No questions asked. I think, and essentially what you want to do is you just want to create this, like I said, this 18-inch Armageddon death zone where you can move up to the enemy and get into rapid fire range, and if they start coming towards you, either to get into their own rapid fire range or to try and get into assault range, you just keep moving back 6 inches, moving back. You just keep the distance, make sure that they'll never have a good chance of getting a charge off on you, never have a good chance to get maximum rapid fire off on you. And you just do that for a few turns, especially if you're playing like a normal Eternal War mission. You just do that for a few turns and the enemy will be absolutely crippled. And then it means you can roll out, march forward, and get onto those objectives. And if you're playing Maelstrom, like we said, it just means you get that extra turn of firepower. And I cannot tell you how powerful it is having an 18-inch rapid fire, especially if you're taking a huge infantry army and everyone's taking advantage of it. I've been using my Steel Legion a lot recently. I've been going back to my Mordians, as you've seen in like my latest battle report. Got another one coming up, by the way. And going back to 12-inch rapid fire feels like I'm fighting with one hand tied behind my back. I think 18-inch rapid fire is something that should not be underestimated. And I think the fact that you can take a full Steel Legion army, infantry, or mechanized, and take huge advantage of it is absolutely fantastic. Now, some of you will be saying, okay, yeah, that's all well and good, but what's the point of taking this over like Cadian? Because Cadian just means I get all the rerolls, right? Well, that's true. But Steel Legion aren't without their ability to get access to rerolls. I mean, you can get Commissar Yarrick. Commissar Yarrick is a 6-inch bubble. You can conga that. If you have 3 squads in front of him and 3 squads behind him, and because you've got an 18-inch rapid fire, having 3 squads behind means you're probably still going to be in rapid fire range. And you can even have 2 squads, or you could have quite easily 6 squads around Yarrick getting reroll 1s to hit. That means you can then focus on first rank fire, second rank fire, and get even more free shots. The Cadians get a lot of rerolls, But what you've got to remember is the Cadians aren't going to be putting out like massive, sorry, cat. Go on, go down. Cadians aren't putting out like huge volumes of firepower because they're going to be taking advantage of take aim so that they get all the rerolls. Steel Legion are kind of more of a throw enough shit at a wall and see what sticks kind of faction. You're going to want to get into rapid fire range, take advantage of Yarick, take advantage of other sources of rerolls, and just absolutely just blaze away. That's what you want to do, is absolutely just saturate your enemy in firepower. That's what you're good at doing. And also, you're more mobile. Cadians have to stay still to get advantage of their trait. They have to stay still. If that means that Steel Legion are more manoeuvrable. So essentially, you've got the Cadians will outgun line potentially, but what you've got to remember is the Steel Legion. If you have a Steel Legion gun line versus a Cadian gun line, the Steel Legion will be putting out more shots, and at 18-inch. And if the Cadians don't close the gap into 12-inch rapid fire, then they got a lot of rerolls. But still, I would say overall, 18-inch rapid fire. Infantry platoon versus infantry platoon, the Steel Legion can definitely, potentially outgun line the Cadians. It's not for sure, of course not for sure. And if the Cadians get within 12-inch rapid fire and get all the rerolls, then you're going to be struggling. But the Steel Legion, played cleverly, could do some serious damage to a Cadian gun line, and that's the mark. Kind of like Ultramarines are sort of the baseline for most Space Marine chapters. Cadians are kind of the baseline for where other regimental, what other regimental doctrines are compared against. And as you can see, one infantry squad of Steel Legion, 18 rapid fire with first rank fire, second rank fire, that's 40 shots. The Cadians are only going to get, if they get first rank fire, second rank fire, they wouldn't even get first rank fire, second rank fire, would they? They'd have take aim. So they wouldn't be rapid fire, so that's 10 shots. Think about it that way. 10 shots. Yeah, you get to reroll all your hits. But 10 shots at 18-inch rapid fire, 18-inch range, or 40 but rerolling hits versus 40 shots at an 18-inch rapid fire. Definitely looks like the Steel Legion are going to win that. Someone could math hammer it. That would be great. I'm looking at 40 shots, 20 hits, 10 wounds, 8 kills, something like that. Cadians would get something like 10 shots, 5 hits, rerolls generous, let's say 8, and then 4 wounds. Steel Legion will stop 1, 3 kills. So yeah, Steel Legion definitely have the possibility to create an absolutely filthy dead zone. And you basically wouldn't waste points. You wouldn't waste points on las cannons. Every las cannon is 20 points you can just put towards another plasma bolter infantry squads, and you just take plasma bolter, plasma bolter, plasma bolter, plasma bolter. You just do it over and over again. Make sure you've got orders for everybody. Make sure take Yarick so that's part of your army's got some rerolls. Definitely very powerful. So tell you what you guys think. It's my first. I've got another advanced infantry tactic coming up. It's going to be a revised version of my Mordian Melter Hedge for 8th edition. And yeah, it's a pretty simple concept, but we'll get on to that in the next video. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.